how to avoid
Sorry.
making those same mistakes. Okay. So starting out, I mean, this is super important, right? A lot of people have ideas, but figuring out if it's a real problem is, I think, paramount. And being so true to that statement, right? Not fooling yourself, not deluding yourself. Really looking at the facts as if people are really going to pay for something that you're building, right? Not assuming, but save yourself time and money and headaches and finding out if it's a real problem to solve. And I'll get into how you do that in a little bit. Next, you do want to survey the market and competitors. You want to see what's out there, right? There's a couple schools of thought where people are like, oh, don't worry about competitors, just keep your head down. There's definitely truth to that, but you should know what you're going up against in the market. So you really have to have a great understanding of what the market is and what the competitors. There are VCs that will invest in a team with no product. They will literally give hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to teams. And what those teams display is superior knowledge of the market and why your product or your business is going to solve a problem that's not being solved. So really doing a deep dive on the market competitors is very important. Again, I've made the mistake where I thought I knew the market, but you really have to know the market inside and out. And if Jeff might know, like previous talks, my talks evolve just because I'm still building, I'm still learning, and I'm hitting this point extra hard because the latest product that I've built, I don't feel that we fully understood the market and competitors. And it's a rude wake-up call to go into a market and realize there's not a lot of differentiation in your product. Not that you can't still win and build a good business, but without that, it's tough. Generate new ideas, right? So be ready to pivot, be ready to change your idea. That's super important. Don't get hung up on your original idea. Be flexible and ready to change, and then stay lean. This is super important, and this gets into the actual building of the MVP. How do you stay lean? We'll get into that, but there are ways to think about staying lean, not just from a product perspective, but from a marketing and business perspective. I'll get into that right now. So what does stay lean mean? First, I'll start with the operations and marketing. Staying lean means, and here are mistakes that I made while I didn't stay lean. First and foremost, hiring people or paying advisors or paying, people. You really don't need to do that. When you're starting out, one or two people or three people, the founder should be doing, I would say, 99 to 100% of the work. You really don't need interns or, really any associates or anything like that early on. You should be able to figure out if you're building something of value just as a solo founder if need be. You really don't need other people. Like you don't need to hire other people. Okay. Now, if it's a direct to consumer product that you're building, okay, there's obviously exceptions to the rule, but I'm generalizing, right? So hiring and all that. Second is people pay so much for software that they don't need, or they don't look for alternatives. For example, people are like, okay, I started a business. I'm going to get a Gmail business account. Do you need a Gmail business account right away? Also, there's something called Zoho, which is a lot cheaper, right? Do you need MailChimp or can you use the cheaper version of an outbound email service, right? Can you find free AWS credits if you need to host a website, right? So many people waste money. Like everyone's on Notion these days. Notion's a great tool. You don't need Notion. Notion is very quickly use up the free credits and you're paying $15 a month for Notion. And then why do you need Notion? Because everyone else is using it. So there's this notion of I need this software stack. I need an intern. I need XYZ. I need a great website. You really don't need most of that. You really don't. So you'll learn as you go through different companies that you can always stay leaner in terms of the operation side. Now, on the product side, that's a whole different ballgame, right? That's company dependent, right? So for some of you building B2B SaaS businesses, right? You're not going to be able to cheap out. You need to build a product, but there's a difference between kind of building out something that you think the customer needs versus talking to the customer right away and figuring out what you need to build and if you need to build more. We'll get into that, but I just want to emphasize like the software that people buy and they just buy they sign for all these Airtables and Notions and Gmail accounts. And it's like, at the end of the day, okay, now you're spending $75 a month, and that money might become valuable to you later on. So, or 150 a month or 300 a month, right? You sign up for a business bank account and you're paying $12 a month for it. It's like all these small things that really, I just see entrepreneurs make that mistake, including myself. So I just wanted to tell you guys that. I know, Kanisha, you're working on the user customer discovery phase, right? And this to me is part of the building MVP phase. So what about user and customer interviews? Like, it's so important. People talk about them all the time. Well, how do you do them, and how do you know you're doing them well? I feel like most people don't talk about that, right? So first, ask about problems that they're having, right? This may be elementary to some of you, right? But you really need to not go solution hunting. You need to go problem hunting. And I'll tell you about my current company, right? So Cross Data, we basically provide alternative data for investors and sales teams, right? By just saying, do you need this, right? Is this something that would be useful? Like, everyone's going to say yes, right? But when you dig deeper to the problems they're solving, it's not just that they don't have the data, it's that they don't have the technology team to implement a data set like ours, for example, right? So building the product in a way where it's easy to implement is more important than maybe having additional data sets, for as an example, right? So asking about problems, a great framework to do user interviews is called Jobs to Be Done framework. Can you do that? And it'll give you a script on how to ask questions in the right way when you're doing user interviews. So I highly recommend that framework for thinking about user interviews. Next, I like to talk about a day in the life of customers and users, right? So, tell me about the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Tell me about the different products you're using. What are you doing at work? How are you getting to work? Just getting a sense of where, especially if you have a consumer product, right, instead of a B2B, that's a great way to understand where your product might fit into how they're living their life. A story that I always tell in my presentations is that a friend of mine was building a consumer product where you could save articles. This was, maybe a decade ago. And he found out through a day in the life questions that he needed to have offline accessibility for his app, because most people would be using his app on the subway. So that's an example of why a day in the life is important for consumer play. Now, again, how do you get in touch with users and customers before you have them? Right? So you can go to your friends, you can go to your network, you can do things like Mechanical Turk, Google Forms, right? These are all ways to gather people and send them surveys in a very economical and direct way. What you want to come out of the user interviews with is an idea of your initial target market and user persona. Everyone says this and knows this, but to really know the value of this, I'm going to tell you a story about my current company, Cross Data. Thought we found our initial target market, and it's pretty specific. It's growth equity and private equity investors, right? You would think that's pretty specific. So we sold one deal to them, and we're selling more. We're trying to sell more and more and more, and it's going slow, and we're not closing deals, and we're wondering why. And you have to go deep again. And I'll tell you, like, we came out of it. It's a much smaller segment than what we thought. It's the data scientist people at these VCs rather than just the VCs themselves. And if we had just kept trying to sell the VCs and not doing our homework, we would have gone out of business, because we wouldn't have closed enough deals, and we would have thought, oh, this product isn't, no one cares about this product, where no, it's actually, people care about it, but we're selling to the wrong person. So really knowing who the buyer is, being very specific about that is so, I actually used to discount that. I used to be like, whatever, like, you can try to sell to a bunch of people and people will buy it. It's really not true, especially in 2024. There's a very specific person that'll buy your product. If anyone will buy it, it's a very specific person. And you need to do a lot of hard work to find that person. And finally, it's, you should be precise and data driven by your customer interviews. Don't just do them and take notes, and throw all the notes in a Google Drive and you did a good job. That's not helpful to anyone. You need to be precise in the questions you're asking, right? And you need to be data driven in terms of how are customers talking about things. Ask people to rate things 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, right? Don't just say, how painful is this problem for you? Give me a scale of 1 to 10. right? Be quantitative when possible when you're talking to customers and users. So now we move on to the MVP and the sort of building phase, right? So I like to say, do you need a product, right? Um, Again, this is a little bit cliche at this point, but I do think it's valuable, right? Like, can you get away with a spreadsheet? Can you get away with a Word doc, right? There's things called no code out there now. I run a software development agency, and oftentimes people come to me with a product and we discover that you don't need a software development team to do it. You don't need an engineer. There's things called no code and low code that you are, if you're not a developer, can build a tech product. Now, there's limitations to it, but again, we're talking about an MVP. We're not talking about a finished business product that's going to scale you to tens of millions of dollars in revenue. So you can certainly just spin up a low code or no code product, or you might not even need a finished product. You can do all the steps I laid out on the previous slide to know if you should build a product, right? If you are building a B2B product, you should have done all the steps I said in the previous slide and know, okay, if we build this, they're going to buy it. You can almost kind of force the people's hand and say, listen, if I buy this, are you in? And get a letter of intent, right? I really think you should have some customers lined up or some letter of intents lined up before you build the product. Again, unless it's some visionary product where people just can't even imagine how it would help them, that's its own issue, right? But that's something that's above my pay grade. I've never built anything like that. But I do believe that for most products out there, you can get away with getting LOIs or people to buy it before you build it on the B2B side. On the B2C side, it's a little tougher. But there's ways to kind of hack together a system. I created a consumer product called Chet. I probably could have just built a Slack channel first and just see if people were sharing products on there that they were doing. So just be creative and really decide if you actually need a product. Now, say you do, right? And you're building, right? This goes back to building for your target market earlier on, being very precise into who your target market is. We were building for VCs and private equity folks, but it was the wrong target market. We had to build for the data scientists at these companies, not the investors. So that changed entirely how we're building this product, right? And we wasted time and effort building the initial target product. And for some people, that's their life savings, that's their savings, that's their investment fund. Who knows, right? So it's a very simple sentence, but it's very key that you're building for your initial target market very specifically. Next is, what can you test? And what does success look like? So when you build your MVP, you want to know if it works. You want to know if people are going to buy it. You want to know if there's going to be users, right? So what are you testing? Look at your MVP as a set of tests. So if it's a consumer product, right, you might say success looks like 30% 30-day retention. Okay. You want to test if that works. You want to see if you can get that. Don't just build the product and go blindly in and say, okay, I'm going to try to sell it now, or I'm going to try to get users. What is your goal? What does success look like? And once you hit success, now you're on your V1 or your V2 version, right? So too many people just get so excited. Done with the MVP, we launched it. Well, now what, right? You need to have a goal and steps to achieving that goal and to know if you're on the right track with your MVP. And, Jeff knows this. This is a huge thing that I see, most especially now in my role as a software development agency partner, is we have people come and say, hey, we want this product built. We believe in it. And the amount of times where we were able to convince them to basically build an eighth or a tenth of what they wanted to, and afterwards, like, yeah, I can't believe we wanted to build all that. And some people have to learn the hard way. I had to learn the hard way, right? You're building a mobile app, a social mobile app. It's like you have these heuristics in your mind, like I need a chat feature. Well, why do you need a chat feature? Well, in case they want to message each other. Well, do you know they want to message each other? No, but they probably will. Or no, that's not how you build, right? You build the core function value that you're providing the customer. Chat is an ancillary customer. If you're building Snapchat or building WhatsApp, then obviously you need chat. But if it's not core to what you want your user to accomplish with your product, just get rid of it. Honestly, I've seen apps that come in at $100,000 quote that get down to 15,000 just because we're like, you don't need that. Why do you need this? Why do you need this? But again, most people won't understand until they internalize it. And truly, 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 if you take anything away from this conversation, hopefully there's some valuable things I said earlier, like talking to your customers, getting very, very precise, but don't waste money on building a bloated MVP. I really think these days, be creative, use a Word doc, use Excel, use a Slack channel, like find the most minimal way to prove that there's something there. And then go build it on no code if you want, or build it on low code. But just keep the features very minimal. That I think that's really important. And it's really important not just to save money, by the way. It's really important so the user knows what to do on your app. Designing a really well done system is very hard. And you probably won't have the resources to hire a great UX person at this point, right? So by keeping it simple and chopping it down has other advantages for you rather than just saving money and saving resources and saving time. Now, the actual MVP, right? The build of the MVP, like say you are ready to go, you want to build it, you want to build a platform, right? How do you do it? Well, I think having a technical co-founder is a 10x additive to your business. I really do. It is such a nice thing to not have to really worry about the technical side of things and to have a partner that you know is going to handle it. And I know it's very hard to find a good technical co-founder. I know a lot of people are like, oh, my friend, I have this part-time co-founder. If you can get around that, I would. If you have to have a part-time technical co-founder or part-time person building, okay, I get it. People like their circumstances, but I would put in a true effort to try to find a real full-time co-founder if you can. It just makes things so much easier. There's platforms called AngelList or Y Combinator, co-founder matching platform that have been successful. I've used them to be successful in finding co-founders. So just really keep that in mind. And I think without funding, it's doable nowadays to build a lot of MVPs through a no-code or low-code platform, or by getting LOIs from businesses that will fund you once you build the platform. So it's still a challenge for people to build something before they get funded, or get revenue. But that's the big challenge you have to overcome. And there's ways to do it, like finding co-founders, building low code, no code. Every day it becomes easier to do this. But again, I would keep in mind chopping it down. And today, I would say, unless you're building something super complex, $20,000 will get you most things that you need built. And frankly, a lot less than that. Like you're going single digit thousands in 2024 to build an MVP. So hopefully, if you really believe in your business, you're able to scrounge that up somehow, either through savings or a second job or something. I really don't think not getting an MVP out there because you can't. I don't think it's an excuse in 2024 with the technology and the networks that are available. So, but I would try to find a co-founder. I would explore low no code, and I would explore other MVP hacks like Slack channels, for example. Now, getting near the end of the presentation here, but and maybe we'll answer some questions, but I think this is also part of thinking how you do an MVP. It's not just the building of the product, it's what you do right after that. And this is very important to me because I've made this mistake and I really want to hammer this home for you guys. There's a difference between go-to-market and marketing, right? So you have your product built, right? And now you're like, okay, I need to get it out there. I need to see if people use it. I need to see if people are going to buy it. So how do I do that? It's called go-to-market, right? I would just forget about marketing until I would honestly forget about marketing until if you're a B2B business, you're hitting, 10,000 MRR a month, $10,000 monthly recurring revenue. And if you're a consumer product, right, until you have, 15 to 20% retention over a month, right, which are pretty high numbers, right? Just forget it. Almost everyone I know who's done marketing before they've reached product market fit, all that money's been wasted. You only want to do marketing when you know the target customer that's going to buy you is going to buy you, right? So once you know that data scientists are going to buy what you're selling them, Then you can market to data scientists, but only until you know who is going to buy you and that they're definitely going to buy you, or at least give you a good shot to sell them. That's only when you do marketing. You only do marketing after product market fit. Otherwise, it's throwing money into a black hole. For example, we worked with this new mobile app on the agency side that built a car riding app. And we just built their MVP and they're doing Google ads and Facebook ads, and social media marketing, and it's not working at all. These users are seeing the marketing. Yes, they're signing up for the product, but there's no product market fit. They leave right away. It's not useful to them at all. So you should be able to get the first users who find it useful on your own, find out who they are, and then you market toward those people who are going to sign up and stay on. It's really important you internalize that. So finding out who's ready to pay. And so you might be wondering, well, how do I get these early customers without marketing? Or how do I get these early users without marketing? There's plenty of ways to do that. You just got to hustle, right? Through your network, through partnerships with social media, but not paying for ads, right? Putting the minimal effort into it. Going to conferences, just showing up, talking to your target customers there, right? You don't have to have a booth, just show up with business cards and a flyer. Doing cold outreach. That works for us. That still works for us in 2020. It's actually, if you can get a good message, I think it's better than ever because there's all these automations and things. So for 39 bucks a month, sign up for one of these outbound platforms and just email people to get a demo. If it's a consumer product, you can use your product. Doesn't really matter. I just think paying for ads, putting all this effort into social media posts, newsletters and stuff. It's wait till you find people who really love your product and are willing to pay or willing to stay, and then figure out exactly who those people are. Then you can market to them, but only until then. And frankly, incubators and accelerators, you're all part of an accelerator. Y Combinator is famous for saying, I mean, if a company gets in a Y Combinator, yes, you get funding, you get a network, it's great. But a huge value add is you're selling to thousands of alumni at Y Combinator, right? So all of you are now going to be CSI alumni. Like, find those people on LinkedIn and ask them to use your product or to potentially buy your product. You don't need to market, it's free. So I feel very strongly about this because so many people, including myself, make this mistake and flush money and time and life away. So please keep this in mind going forward. Now, I said, don't market until you reach product market fit. What does that mean, right? You probably heard product market fit. It's very nebulous. What does it mean? Well, the answer is it is nebulous. It's different for everyone. It's different for every type of business. It's different for every type of investor. You don't really know until you see it, until you feel it for your own business, right? But it's important to try to build towards that. That's the number one most important thing to do with your MVP, is to try to reach product market fit. So I would set up a North Star, right? Here's what we think product market fit is. Drive towards that. Every week, you're on your dashboard, you're on your Google Sheet, seeing how much progress you're making towards your North Star metric, which is product market fit. If you want to read more about what product market fit is, the two resources that I would recommend is one's called Superhuman. There's an article that they have around product market fit. It's an email company. I think they define it really interesting. Basically, if I could recall, I haven't read it in a while, but basically their definition of product market fit is when 40% of their users would be, quote unquote, very disappointed if their product disappeared tomorrow. So think about that, right? So 4 out of 10 of your users or your customers would feel very disappointed if you close down your business. That's what they consider product market fit. Now, that's a very high bar if you think about it, right? Like, most of us will build consumer products, shut down, no, right? But I'm sure if like Snapchat or Instagram shut down, more than 40% people would be very disappointed, right? They've obviously crushed product market fit. So it's just a great framework to try to build towards. And then Sequoia Capital is probably it's top 3 investment VC fund in the world. They also have a great article and series of articles on what it means to achieve product market fit for different industries. It's a little more in depth, and I think it's worth the read. So again, near the end here, so you treat them well, make them part of your company, right? Really give them updates, right? They're they can really be an asset to you going forward. I get this question a lot. Should we just give our product away for free? Can we give it away for free to get feedback? Do we always have to charge? It's more of a philosophy thing. I've seen both ways be successful. I do think you should charge to get them to have some skin in the game, but it's not always possible, right? The problem with giving away for free, I'll tell you, is two things. One is they're not going to really use it, right? Like people like use things when there's skin in the game, right? So, yes, you can get away with it, I think, right? It's possible, but most people aren't going to use it. But more importantly, they're not going to tell you the like things that are really wrong with it. If you pay for something and the service is terrible, you're willing to say something as feedback. But if you're not paying for anything, what's the point of giving feedback? I got it for free. So all that being said, I used to feel strongly about get people to pay no matter what. I don't feel as strongly anymore because I don't think that's always possible. And there's a chicken and the egg problem that you need to solve. And sometimes you just need to give it to people, get it in their hands and learn and really try to force them to use it even though they're not paying. So I think you can go either way. And I wouldn't focus on the semantics of it. I would just try to get people to pay first. If it's not happening at all, then you shift to giving it away. This stage of the game should all be about learning. Don't be lazy, be data focused. It's very easy to be lazy and not data focused. I fall into that trap all the time. But you must be disciplined and data focused, or you're flying a plane without a radar. It makes no sense. So make sure that an axiom you guys all keep in mind is being data focused. And then yeah, if you treat your customers well and make them part of the company, you're going to get referrals, which is great. And the way to keep them way to make them feel part of the company is through updates in the company. Just every month, every quarter, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what's new, and it's going to be great. So make that part of what you're doing. And then on pricing, again, this is something that I've been asked, so I've added this slide. I do think pricing is underrated. You can have a great demo and you're selling your product and they ask what pricing is, you can say the pricing. Most of the time, they're not going to say, oh my God, that's so expensive, never mind, right? They kind of just say, okay, great, we'll get back to you. And they don't buy it. You don't know whether it's the product or the pricing. And so getting the pricing right is very hard, but you can't just wing it. You have to study the market. You have to know what competitors are pricing. You have to know where you're at. And it's not always the cheapest product. Sometimes it's not always the most expensive. Sometimes you should overprice. Sometimes you should underprice. It's a science. It really is. I mean, big companies have teams of pricing analysts. That's how important it is. Like companies with the resources will have pricing analysts that decide how to price things, right? So it's not any different than your product. You have to think about what's a good price for whatever you're trying to accomplish. And then, yeah, there's a school of thought that says get the deal, get the user, and then you aim for retention, right? Once you get the user or the customer, the paying customer, your work's just starting. The retention is the thing that matters most in sustainable businesses. You have no retention, you have no business. So keep that in mind as well. And then, yeah, in closing here, basically, I would say a couple things to keep in mind that I haven't touched on. Partners, that means just co-founders and your business partners, right? Like cultivate that. Going on this journey alone is really hard. I think the biggest advantage to having partners or co-founders is the accountability. I think most of us just are human and it's tough to just sustain hard work every day for months and years, and having an accountability co-founder to know that you need to get things done and they need to get things done for you guys to accomplish your goals is super important. Mentors are very important. I just think it's really hard to not have mentors who've been there, done that. And I don't think it's terribly difficult to get someone to say yes to being a mentor. It might be hard to get the person you want to be your mentor if you're just writing one person or three people. But if you're at 100 people with a well-crafted message and you're really thoughtful about it, someone's going to say yes. I honestly think if you can't get a mentor, you shouldn't be starting a business. Like you have to be able to sell yourself, and someone should be able to give you some time. And the last thing I'll say is speed. Speed's important for sure, but it is a marathon. So as long as you show up every day and advance yourself a little bit, great. But if you can work fast and can move fast, and most importantly, make decisions fast. Going frantic all day is just not sustainable. But what you can do as an early stage startup is make decisions with speed. And so that puts you ahead of maybe other people who aren't doing that. So don't sit on decisions too long. Your advantage is your speed and you're not having a hierarchy or a bureaucracy to go through. So just move really quickly on things and make decisions fast. So yeah, that's what I know about MVPs and going to market.
I have a question. So you mentioned what you believe, like how you feel about free products. So you don't think that's viable. What do you feel about freemium products? Like, so products that are free baseline, but then have subscription uh,
Yeah,
features to
no,
it.
that's certainly I would we're employing that in one of my businesses. So freemium's great. I think freemium implies that it might be like a more of a consumer driven startup. Still B2B, but it's just you can sign up and yeah, no, freemium if your business model fits it is great. So I would 100% if you could do freemium, you should do it.
Excuse me, any other questions from anyone in the audience?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I had a question based on you mentioned about asking the right questions from the customers in their interviews. Where can I find those information?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, you mentioned about jobs to be done framework
Oh,
and asking the right questions in like user interviews. How can I find more information and learn more on, framing the question in a way to understand the problem?
yeah, I think if you just search jobs to be done framework, um, it'll give you there's a bunch of like overviews and frameworks to how to accomplish that. I know there's one here I'll send in the chat on by Harvard Business Review. So but basically there's a lot of content out there that'll help you frame the how to frame your user interview scripts on a jobs to be done framework.
That's good. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Dimitri or Priyanka, any questions?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris, I'm actually just curious, as you mentioned how before you were trying to sell to VCs and now you're selling to the data scientists at the VC firms. What made you come to this conclusion?
So sorry, you were breaking up a bit, but basically were you asking why did I pivot from selling to VCs to data scientists? Or what helped that conclusion?
Yes, what helped you come to that conclusion?
So just talking to customers and realizing we didn't have like the way we were trying to sell the product and the way we thought we had some differentiation wasn't ringing true to them. And they had to kind of go and talk to other people within the firm. And so we just thought that we literally talked to 140 potential customers. And it just they didn't have like they couldn't see how the product would really benefit them 10x. And to be an incumbent product where you have to unsee other people, you have to be a 5 to 10x improvement. And so it was simply just them not seeing the light, but the people that they constantly were like wanted to refer us to were sort of the data and tech people. So we just literally shifted our entire website and our entire pitch to just focus and hone in on those people. Basically, what we said was that investors and sales teams in 2024, if you're a big, so Andreessen Horowitz, for example, they just hired 6 data scientists over the past year, right? They had 0, now they have 6. Big KKR has data science people now. So if you're a big fund above a certain AUM, you are literally hiring data science people because there's so much alternative data out there. But if you're a smaller fund, you can't afford a data scientist. So we're saying, let us be your internal data science out of a box, right? So if you have one data science person or one data person or one tech person, if we come in and help augment your data science, that's what we want to do. So it was just a function of just talking and failing and realizing that we were talking to the wrong people. It wasn't anything more than that.
Okay, and I'm just curious. I'm genuinely curious on this topic. And now that you've pivoted towards the data scientist, I know a bit about the product, right? It's kind of like a maybe like an automated biz dev product, right? Where you're helping people find the kind of context they want for sales and partnerships, etc. Why do you feel like it resonates with data scientists more?
Just because the data that we're providing is more of like a foundational piece, like a stack, where it's better consumed via API. And like basically how VCs live on their CRM these days. They're not jumping from platform to platform, right? But they need to integrate data into their CRM. There's a record matching type process that goes on. It's much more complex than when I built a platform, 8 years ago. And it's just and so we weren't up to the times, and we realized no, there's a certain process in place. And yes, of course, there are still VCs that want to use the platform, right, themselves. But we're finding that the competition is so fierce in that space that why are we trying to compete there? Let's go to the new age where people are starting to try to figure out their data stack and data product. And we don't know if it'll work, by the way. Like we're still very early stage, right? We're figuring it out, but it's a bet we're making, right? It's another test, an MVP, and building early companies all about tests. And this is another test.
Gotcha. Okay. No, very interesting stuff, and interesting to see how you're pivoting in real time. So I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Cool. Any last questions before you wrap up?
Yeah, actually, I just got a question. So regarding product market fit, right? So let's say we created idea, we created the deck, and we started building prototype. And then we realized that we got a major competitor that already has a customer base, right? And they kind of doing similar thing, right? Similar product. So basically, two questions here. Does this mean that product market fit is already found, and we're just doing in the right direction, right? And secondly, is it worth to pivot or just kind of continue and do it in a better way? So what would be your take on this?
I mean, it depends on what your goals are, right? So your first question is just because a competitor is out there succeeding, you have this, if you have the same exact product, like literally the same thing, I mean, I don't know. I guess you have product market fit. I still think your positioning, right? Your website, the font you use, the text, it all matters. So I don't think you have product market fit until you yourself prove that you have product market fit. I don't think you can rely on a competitor's success to say, oh, we have product market fit. So it's only on you. And then whether you want us to keep going or not, I mean, again, I don't know, right? Like it depends. There's too many nuances and factors for me to give advice in that, right? Like if Lyft said, oh, Uber's doing this already, we're not going to go into it, they would have not built a $30 billion business, right? So it depends on how big the market is. Can there be multiple winners? Can you slightly change an offering and then maybe win different types of people in the market, right? But yeah, I mean, certainly if you, I just no, I would not say just because there's a competitor, I'm not going to go after it or slow it down. But I don't know the market. Only you can answer that, whether you think you can carve out and reach your goals. Do you want to build a $5 million business, a $100 million business? What's the market size? What's the estimated sales of your current competitor? How much capital do they have? How much will they expand? Will there be other entrants? There's just too many factors to say. Sometimes the answer is no, we shouldn't. Sometimes the answer is yes, we should keep going. Most of the time, the answer is yes, we should keep going. But I can't tell you, what you should do there. But I would say generally speaking, just because someone's doing exactly what you do doesn't mean you should stop. You should be innovative and try to beat them.
Yeah, that's my understanding. We just need to find our niche. We need to find our, like unique set of features, and kind of find our market in the larger
Yep.
market. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Chris, so much as always for a very informative and insightful presentation. We always value you bringing your knowledge and your experience to the table. So I think that's all for today. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for joining. And Chris, if you don't mind, maybe you just email your presentation to Camilla. And for the guests on the call, Camilla will send you all the recap video with the presentation. And if anyone wants to connect with Chris personally, we'll include his email.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll send it over. And as always, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.